The BYU Cougars handle the Stanford Cardinal 27-3. Points were left on the field. The offense is, middling, but the defense, downright elite. We're talking about all of it here on our postcast.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars Special Edition. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider as your host here on this podcast, and welcome in as BYU beats the Stanford Cardinal 27-3 and improves to 2-0. Now, biggest thing to take away from tonight is, yes, the offense, it was less than stellar. But I think I've been pretty clear in most of the podcast talking about the step up in competition BYU is going to face is it was going to be the next test for Bear Bachmeier. And did he pass it? It obviously depends on the beholder. A lot of people had issues with some of the play calling in this game. The bigger point is Stanford, far better team talent-wise than Portland State was. And this is a game that BYU will learn a lot from. And the nice part is it came in a relatively comfortable win, albeit unsatisfying type of win. That's what I really took away from this to kind of kick off this postcast is that there is a lot for BYU to clean up on. You look at those penalties, some of the penalties BYU had in this game, they're going to learn from those. Those will be spotlighted during their film sessions. They've got a bye week upcoming, so there's going to be some extra work looking back at Stanford as well as Portland State and cleaning up the mistakes to get ready for 2 weeks from now when they head out to East Carolina. But I think that this is a team, speaking of BYU, it's a work in progress. And the nice part is you're 2-0 despite your foibles. That's what I really like about this team. And it also is a mark of the relatively soft schedule right out the chute that BYU had this season. Portland State and Stanford, they're two of the weakest teams on paper BYU is going to face this year, but in many respects, they're the perfect way for a guy like Bear Bachmeier to settle in with this offense, build some continuity, and hopefully by midseason, around the time BYU and Utah square off, that's game 7 of the season, mid-October, he should be much more settled, much more confident, much more comfortable in running everything BYU has to run, and in theory, that should be when the offense really, I hope, hits its stride. Now, the level of competition to that point that they'll be facing is also pretty downright elite. But I really do think that this is a BYU team that, despite some of the shortcomings in this game against Stanford, still showed plenty of progress in my mind. I will also acknowledge this. At least 8 points were taken off the field by the officials in this game. And any of you, before you ask, it was a crew from the ACC. So Stanford had the officials coming with them to Provo. And there was a holding call that negated a touchdown that Parker Kingston had put in the end zone. I think it was Kean Need. They called for a hold. I rewatched that play about 5 times up in the press box, and it's about as phantom of a hold as I can ever imagine seeing. Then later on, LJ Martin looked like he clearly crossed the plane of the goal line with that football in that scrum. And for some reason, the far line judge for me, so the line judge on BYU sideline, comes running in saying he's short. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you talking about? Watch the replay. Very clear that he was across the goal line. And I don't get for the life of me, why do we have video replay assist? Why do we have guys up in the box that are looking at these plays? They're not going to radio down and say, hey, we want to take an extra look at this. Besides that, I do think that those 8 points cost BYU in that margin because 35-3 looks a whole lot better than 27-3. Even more than that, BYU cost themselves with some of their own mistakes. Chase Roberts, they had that screenplay. He was coming down the sideline. It looked in live time. Had he caught that, he's going to dive in for a touchdown. Straight up drops it. So there's mistakes from BYU side of things, mistakes from the officiating, but the nice part is, despite all of the mistakes from the offense and some of the lack of production, execution, and the like, BYU still 2-0. And based on how things look on the back end of the top 25, I'm not going to be surprised if BYU finds themselves ranked come Monday. We'll find out, obviously, on that. The AP voters will have their say, the coaches. I know that BYU's already ranked in the coaches poll, but I put more weight into the AP poll. I would expect that BYU moves up because programs like Kansas State, I'm telling you, Kansas State is not good. Okay, Leviticus. How about the mutes, LOL? Well, Utah did win today. They beat Cal Poly. It was like 60-some-odd to 9. So the thing is, BYU handled their business. They're 2-0, should be feeling good about themselves, be patting themselves on the back. And now I'm crazy. I might sound crazy in saying this. I don't really like early bye weeks. I was very clear about that for those of you who are everydayers when the schedule came out, when I've been talking about how things laid out here for BYU. But looking at it from the prism of the first two games, an absolute dominant, thorough thrashing of Portland State, now a game against Stanford where you did pretty darn well, I think, all things considered. It's nice to take a pause here and let Bear Bachmeier kind of gather his bearings and get himself set. The other thing I need to point out is that the defense for BYU, it is downright elite. It is absolutely dominant. What we are seeing from BYU's defense, I know that the level of competition is not top tier yet for BYU, but to have allowed a grand total of 3 points, to have allowed 14, count them, 14 rushing yards, and average 7 rushing yards per game, the first two opponents BYU has faced. I think it was Stanford had 91 of their yards tonight in the fourth quarter when BYU started subbing pretty liberally with the 2s and the 3s on defense late in that game as they really felt like things were in hand. I really do think that the defense, it is showing itself to be one of the top units, if not in the Big 12, in the entire country. The linebacking core, the safeties, the corners, the defensive line, they're all operating at an extremely high level. And I think Jay Hill will tell you himself, he doesn't think they're even near their peak yet. So that should excite you as a Cougar fan to think about how good this defense already is and could become. That's the fun part about this, to look at, okay, what's going on with this team? Well, there's obviously things to clean up. And let's just put it this way. There was a certain member of the BYU program that I bumped into a post game that was less than enthused that BYU even gave up 3 points. They wanted that shutout, and they wanted that shutout bad. And yes, it's kind of that middle finger thing from a team. Like, we're not going to get shut out. We're going to kick a field goal down 20, whatever they were at that point, Stanford was, just to make sure that they avoid a shutout. It's one of those things you're like, okay, that's classic. We didn't get shut out. Just got the field goal. But considering the context, 97-3 is the score in favor of BYU against their opposition. They've scored 97 points as compared to 3 points overall. Pretty impressive stuff. Is it 97? No, it's 96. 96-3. But all the same, really, really like what we're seeing from BYU defensively. All right, so that is kind of my thoughts on everything. Oh, one other thing on the special teams front. Will Farron remains elite. Kalani Sitake did say post-game that he considered letting Will kick a 64-yard field goal towards the end of the first half. He said the clock was a little lower. They had like 3 seconds left, where it's absolutely the last play of the half. He probably would have done it, but with the extra time left on the clock, he decided to punt it there. And then I think we do have a bit of a question mark at punt return. 2 games, 2 fumbles for Parker Kingston. That will absolutely have to be addressed by Kelly Papinga and the special teams unit because we saw Tiger Bachmeier enter the game after Parker had that fumble that was recovered by Cody Hagan. But we saw Tiger come in and uncork a 44-yard punt return. So I do think that there is a bit of a battle there at punt returner, and there should be. Because I don't know how many of you remember this. You probably do. Tiger Bachmeier, he's a freshman All-American as not a wide receiver at Stanford, as a punt returner. He's really, really good in that punt return. And I think that the nice part is it's not that BYU doesn't have a punt returner. So they've got multiple guys they can give a look at. I'd say Cody Hagan also probably deserves a look there. But I think that bye week, Parker Kingston's going to have to battle for his time at punt return because it's absolutely a situation that you've got to look at it now because you can't have guys with slippery fingers when it comes to that because that return game, it's critical. Outside of that, BYU special teams for me, really, really solid. It's this way. If you want my letter grades offensively, I'd say it's like a B-. Defense, A. Special teams, B+. That's probably what I'd go with grades wise. Some of you may have a different opinion on that, but that's what we're going to get to next. Locked On Insider Group members sounded off. You guys are sounding off in the comments as well. And we're going to get to all those, and we'll get to them next as we roll on right here on the special edition, postcast edition of Locked On Cougars as we react to BYU's 27-3 victory over the Stanford Cardinal. More in a moment. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, if you find yourself sitting at home wanting to get out to a BYU game or literally any other game you're interested in, Game Time is the option for you guys. All you got to do is go download the Game Time app today. And the best part about the Game Time app is it's got live looks at what the different ticket prices are. And they actually go down in many respects the closer you get to kickoff at a BYU game and the like. So you can score some pretty sweet tickets if you decide to go to the game. More importantly than that, you see exactly what the price is right up front, and that's what you pay. There's no fees being tacked on in the end where all of a sudden you went from one price to another one in a matter of seconds as you try to check out. You get seat views, exactly what to expect in terms of where you'll be sitting in the stadium. And the best part is we've got a deal for you guys as well. So if you download the Game Time app today, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. You heard that right. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. That's the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Get your tickets, get out to the game, and enjoy it. All courtesy of our friends over at Game Time. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen and or view of the day. Hope you're doing fantastic on this early Sunday morning. What are we time at? We're at 1:57 a.m. Mountain Time, baby. This is what I love doing. I know one of you out there, I'm going to shout him out, Nate Dunn. Nate's on social media. I saw him at a Maple Mountain game a couple weeks back, and he said, one of my favorite things is, Jake, is at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning, I get the notification that you're going live on YouTube to talk about a BYU game. There's nothing better than that. So, Nate, big shout out to you. Also, I do need to give a shout out to Len. He's part of the welcoming committee for BYU and their the opposing fan bases, like the ambassador team. And Len reached out, and Len, I'm not going to lie, I left this upstairs, so I don't have the shirt with me. But Len has put together a new Days of 47 shirt that he's going to start selling. If you're interested in as Cougar fans, it's got a bear with a football uniform on, Bear Bachmeyer, we're number 47. I'll make sure to get a picture of it and throw it out on social media. But Len did that. Also met Jake and his family. Who else did I meet pregame tonight? I think I met David. There's a handful of you. I walked the entire concourse of the LaVell Edwards Stadium. I like to kind of walk around and get the vibe, and it's really cool to those of you that shouted me out. A couple of you yelled, "Hey, Jake, love Locked On BYU." Hey, next time, stop and say hello. I do appreciate anybody who does that. But time now to let you guys have your say on how the game went tonight. First, a comment from a Locked On Cougars insider group, Travis. Always good to get a win. Defense is dominant and entertaining. So much to be desired on offense with execution and the play calling. A-Rod needs to quit being so conservative and gimmicky and just run the offense. Have to score touchdowns in the red zone. Bear needs every bit of experience because at times he is not seeing the field great. Hopefully he'll learn with the film. Will take much better offense to win at East Carolina. Crazy that we're already through 2 weeks. It's not a bad point there, Travis. We are 2 weeks in already, but I think it's a good point there about Bear not seeing the field fully, because watching it from the press box, I get a little bit of bird's eye view, as many of you know, sitting up there. I get to watch things from the top down. And for the life of me, I will never understand why Stanford came into this game thinking their corners could cover Chase Roberts one-on-one. There were multiple times. I'm going to do this on my film review. I'm going to look back on it and rewatch this game. But it felt like watching Chase operate one-on-one. He won those one-on-one battles, and the problem was Bear wasn't seeing him. That's classic young quarterback who isn't necessarily, I said, it's kind of more tunnel vision. He doesn't have the full vision that an experienced quarterback has or he will have in time. But Chase, they're going to cover him single coverage. You tell Bear, if you're Aaron Roderick, hey, look at two. If it's a single coverage, a one-on-one coverage there, get him the football. Chase is absolutely elite in one-on-one situations. So to Travis's point, does need to look a little more, have more vision in the field. One thing I will say about Bear right now, he's absolutely killing it in the play action game. Dominant ground game. By the way, LJ Martin, another 100-yard game. He looks absolutely the part of a workhorse. He didn't need to do a ton tonight. Did enough to get the victory. But I think the thing is, you look at it, and when you have a dominant run game, young quarterbacks thrive in play action, and that's exactly what a guy like Bear is benefiting from, is from that play action game. Sione says this, I'm not worried. If I get this to pull up here, I'm not worried. I'm glad they can make these mistakes against the bad teams so they don't make them against the good ones. It's a very good point from Sione there. And I think that is something that BYU, they will be they will be better for this experience against Stanford because, as I said, they have a full bye week here to dissect that film. They get to sit back, watch ECU play. I think I heard Greg Wrubell say they're playing Coastal Carolina this coming week. Speaking of East Carolina, they smashed Campbell, an FCS program, was like 56-3. So they're off to a 1-1 start as they lost at NC State in the week opener, season opener, I should say. But I do think that BYU is going to be better for the struggles, all things considered, they had against Stanford, because coaches will tell you the most improvement you make is when you win a game and you have a lot to correct. And there is a lot for BYU to look back on. The coaches will not be satisfied with how BYU operated, and there'll be plenty to work on there. Let's see. Christopher, unsatisfied. Defense was stellar. Offense sputtered. Not a bad idea. Offense did sputter at times. It feels like Bear, there's times he's absolutely elite. That deep ball to Chase late in that game, really impressed with when he uncorked that one as a play action, as I mentioned. He really, the timing on it was great. The lofted it in there nice, and had Chase had a step on a guy, he probably is off to the races for a touchdown, but that corner was in coverage. But that's kind of the point of, okay, Bear has really, really high upside and potential. Chase had a one-on-one situation, and Bear said, you know what? We're going deep. And it's also that Bear wasn't afraid of going deep. He actually uncorked some ones tonight that you were like, okay. He also did get away with on the very first play of the game that probably should have been intercepted. It was like tipped up 3 or 4 times, hot potato style by Stanford. But he is pretty darn good for a true freshman. He's getting it done out there. Carter, they covered. It's all good. Smiling face emoji. Carter, did you have some money on this game? I'm just kidding. I'm not going to accuse you of that. Alex, a lot was left out there. Yeah, a lot of points, a lot of opportunities, a lot of possessions, that type of stuff. But the nice part is you improved. And that's the thing about this. Ooh, this is going from Donnie. I'm going to throw this up here. He's in our comments. The O-line looked atrocious. I wouldn't say atrocious, but they did not play their best game. The one thing I think that is going to change is, as I understand it from what people I've talked to, and maybe I'm revealing too much, but I have been told that Waylon Lapuaho is supposed to be back after the bye week. He's supposed to be available for East Carolina. Waylon Lapuaho, when he's out there, he stabilizes, especially the left side of that offensive line alongside Isaiah Jota, because he's an absolute rock at that left guard spot. With him out, we have seen Sione Makasini, Kyle Saforchuk, Austin Leusa. We have seen a rotation of guys at both guard spots for the first 2 games of the season. I think that may have been by design because they've got a lot of guys that are trying to determine who the best 5 are. I think this bye week, TJ Woods is going to be able to sit down finally and, in theory, have enough game tape to say, okay, these are my 5 guys, and that includes Waylon. If Waylon is fully cleared and is ready for East Carolina, guarantee you right now it's going to be Isaiah Jota, left tackle, Waylon Lapuaho, left guard, Bruce Mitchell, right guard. You'll have Andrew Gentry at right tackle, and really the only question mark at that point is, who's playing right guard? Is it Kyle Saforchuk? Is it Sione Makasini? Is it Austin Leusa? That will be the determining factor. I think eventually that offensive line will be settled, and I hope it's settled this week. You can use the bye week to gel a little bit, get Waylon back into the lineup there, and then figure it out from there. But I think the offensive line, yeah, it did struggle because there were 3 sacks on Bear. One of them was absolutely got lit up on the blind side. A guy like Isaiah Jota on the running backs, you're going to have to answer for that one. You don't want your quarterback taking those type of hits. But he did not fumble the ball. And to H. Johnson's point here, the most reassuring part of the game, no turnovers. You win the turnover margin, it's absolutely elite. And I will also say this, Ben Gulbranson, he is, in a word, or 2 words, not good. Whew, he's awful. Like, here's the thing, those 2 interceptions that he threw were thrown right to Raider Damuni and then right to Falatau Satuala, and I'm not sure what he was seeing, and in fact, I think he was seeing ghosts. BYU's defense right now is disguising coverages especially well. Falatau said post-game when we talked to him that they had a different look when the pre-snap on that one that he intercepted to essentially end the game. And he said that we morphed into it, and he threw it right where I was covering the flat, and he threw it right to the flat, and I picked it off. So that is a nice thing that you can understand that this defense, they made this game really difficult. And Ben Gulbranson, as compared to Bear Bachmeier, who's a 19-year-old true freshman, Ben Gulbranson's a 24, 25-year-old sixth-year senior who looked like the more comfortable quarterback overall. My money's on Bear. Ben Gulbranson was he's jumpy. There's just, I don't see what Stanford sees to keep him as their starting quarterback, but maybe they're just going to let it roll with it. Jake says this, it's a learning process for the young QB. Reads and him growing are all part of this process. They are. He will get better as we go along here. Reagan, we left at least 2 scores off the board. The first was not a hold. That was right there, but it's close to my prediction of 31-10. So you're right on it, Reagan. That's pretty close. Yeah, 27-3. Let's see. Also seemed Jaden. Also seemed like Isaiah Jada was having a rough night tonight. Look, he missed multiple blocks, made some dumb mistakes that stalled drives. He did have the false start that cost BYU on the goal line. Speaking of Jada, you're right. He also had Jaden many missed opportunities in the red zone. And yeah, Isaiah Jada, it's probably not going to be his finest performance on tape. But I think the nice part is that you look at all this and you improve and you still won that game. That is the big takeaway, is you still won the game, but there's still a lot to clean up on. It's not that BYU is operating at peak efficiency. And a couple of people pointed out, September 6th, BYU played Stanford in this game. Last year, September 6th, guess who it was? SMU. And remember, SMU, BYU was field goal central in that game. And they found a way to win that one. And from there, the offense really kind of leveled up game after game after game with Jake Retzlaff under center. Maybe we're following a similar track here. Yeah, early sputtering, early struggles out of the chute, but eventually you're going to hit your stride. And as I mentioned, it's the whole goal is by the time you get to the Utah game, that Bear is near a peak efficiency for what you hope he can be at this point. The running game's rocking and rolling. And I really do think that it's going to be a major positive as he goes through these struggles and learns a lot. A couple of questions here about ECU. Let me throw this up. Let's see. Throw this up here real quick from Big Floppa. What are your expectations for East Carolina? And do you think A-Rod will open up the playbook a little bit more? Yeah, I do think that the playbook is going to be more and more of it is going to be put out on film. Speaking of Aaron Roderick, the one thing that he is very reticent to do is to put everything that BYU has schemed up on tape. And you're probably saying, well, he's already got everything on tape because he's been coaching BYU for all these years. Yes, he does. But there are wrinkles. There's new plays, his gadget plays, as he likes to call them, or specials is what they call them, I think. Those type of things, you don't want to throw those all out there. And I think East Carolina, Bear Bachmeier will be able to kind of take the next step. He'll have watched a lot of film over 2 weeks. They can watch East Carolina in depth. And you can say, okay, we can try adding this and this and this to your play sheet here. And it's a process. Bear may know the whole playbook right now. That's no doubt about it. They absolutely know that he knows the playbook. The whole execution part of it, being able to really run those plays to perfection, that's the question mark that you got to kind of weigh with that. So that's the interesting part about this. Good point here from H. Johnson. Jake Lasher, speaking of Jake Retzlaff, 57.9% for the season. Bear tonight, 62.9%. He is pretty dang accurate for a young quarterback. And that's the one thing I do appreciate about him is he gets the ball where it needs to be, when it needs to be there, and he makes plays. I really do think that it's a really nice thing to have. But I also still need to give a massive shout to the BYU defense. Quarterbacks are always going to take the headlines. That's just the simple fact of life when it comes to football. It's the most important position in college football and football in general. But BYU's defense, that's a great, I want to call it a crutch, whatever you want to call it. It's a great thing to be able to have a defense that's going to say, hey, we got this. BYU's defense, for all intents and purposes, lost the game 3-2 to Stanford because they had the safety. Falatau Satuala tackling the guy, Jack Kelly coming in and cleaning up off the edge. So I really do think that it's a nice performance for BYU. Looking at defensive stats, I'm just pulling this up real quick live on the air. BYU finished with a grand total of 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. So that's pretty darn impressive. Sacks went to Isaiah Glasker, Jack Kelly, and then Keanu Tanuvasa. Obviously cool to see him get his first in a Cougar uniform. Jack Kelly, 4 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, QB hit, forced fumble. Yeah, some of these guys, you look at these stats, is that the BYU defense, it's downright elite. Logan Latui actually led BYU in tackles, 6 total tackles, 2 of them solo, 1.5 tackles for loss. BYU had 7 quarterback hits. Like they made life miserable for Ben Gulbranson and Stanford. So really, really impressed with what they showed there. A couple of personnel notes I probably should add here before we go. We saw JoJo Phillips at halftime come out of the locker room. No pads on, right arm was in a sling. And Kalani Sitake said that he didn't have a timeline on it. He said it's going to be sometime. That indicates to me it's going to be a little longer term for a guy like JoJo Phillips. Does that mean it's season ending? That's TBD. We saw Viliami Apuha being helped off the field. He lost his shoe and got kind of rolled up on. The BYU radio, Greg Wrubell and Hands, I think, said on air that he was cleared to return to action. But from my vantage point, I never saw him come back into the game. Bodie Schoonover was a guy I also saw leave. I don't know if he returned as well. There's obviously question marks about Justin Kirkland, Waylon Lapuaho, Dayton Nakua, Reggie Frischnecht, and then Che Bryant Struther as well. Those of you who are the insiders group got a text from me pregame about the Struther situation. It's an injury of some variety, and he's unavailable for the time being. Long-term, short-term, I don't know the time frame on that, but it's unfortunate. The nice part is that Siale Acera held down the fort and Max Alford stepped up. And Max, by the way, what a find he was in the transfer portal. A walk-on from Utah State entered the portal, and BYU brought him in. And all he's done is he's found an opportunity for himself and got a major opportunity in this game with Che Bryant Struther on the sideline. So really cool to see that. Big Flop, a good point here. When was the last time a BYU had a strip sack? That was awesome. They've been making it a point to really rake in the pocket. When they get there, they want to make sure that the quarterback, if they can get that ball out, they want to get it out. So I think this is a good, solid, professional type win for BYU. Was it thrilling? No. Was it satisfying? Probably not, because you like to see BYU put in a few more touchdowns on the board. But the good news is, if you're a Cougar fan, is they're 2-0. They're moving on. And the nice part is you got a bye week here, kind of gather your bearings, help some of these guys heal up from the early dings and dents, because that's a big part of the game is you take a lot of hits and you got an extra week here to rest up. And the nice part is they can now look forward and hopefully be better for it as they head across the country to East Carolina. I want to talk about the next test for Bear Bachmeier. He's had 2 home games. Now it's a road game. East Carolina's fan base, it may not be huge, but it is a rabid fan base. East Carolina, what I know of the Pirates is they got a really, really strong fan base, and obviously they'll be out for blood. BYU's lost the last 2 times they've played East Carolina, so going to have to battle some things there. And the nice part is you have a lot going for you going into that matchup, in addition to the fact that you're 2-0 and very likely to be ranked, I think, this coming week. So Big Flop, you say you think BYU will be ranked up here in the top 25? I think they will. They're one spot out, and with the losses on the back end of that, it's kind of transactional. Teams move up and down very quickly, and we'll see what happens. Oh, I can answer this one right here. Prestizi updates. Still no news with Hinckley Ropati's waiver. This is getting ridiculous, NCAA. I can tell you, I've said this to my insiders group members, is that unless something has changed in like the last 2 days, Hinckley Ropati's waiver is going to be denied if it has not been outright denied by the NCAA. He will not be able to play this season for BYU. A little bit disappointing, I'm sure, to hear that, but that's where things stand on that front. So, all right, that's going to do it. I'm going to sign off now because it's now, what are we at? Almost 2:15 a.m. in the morning. I'm going to go to bed now. So hope you guys are all doing fantastic. I will be rewatching this game tomorrow. As you guys all know, on Monday, we do our film review. We'll also have our stock up and stock down in the Big 12. I can tell you, one of the teams that's going to be more near the bottom, Kansas State Wildcats. You lose to Army, and you had 2 second-half possessions. That was an Army-like masterclass in ball possession. But as always, thank you for all y'all's support. You guys have a great night. Get some sleep. Get to church if you're a church-going folk. But regardless, enjoy your Sunday. We'll be back with you guys again Monday, reacting to everything going on, my film review and the like, right here on your original daily podcast, the Locked On Cougars podcast. So until then, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, and come back on Monday and be an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. See you.